This is printed and pressed. I'm Chris.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Will.
Sounds like Andrew's making a mixed drink over there.
He told me he wasn't going to share. I'm very upset.
I know. My goodness. Oh, I see. Andrew doesn't want to be top left. He wants to be top right. All right. Today we're going to be discussing a personal favorite book of mine, my favorite book by Clive Staples Lewis.
I wonder what Chris is going to rate it.
Perelandra. And because it's a green book, you get the really weird green screen effect here. Look at that. That's pretty neat. Isn't that weird?
At least you can see the title and stuff. That's nice.
Yeah.
That is kind of really strange. It's like a floating title. Like my face is gone.
Oh, the stream improved already.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, did this copy of yours end up being a
I had the same copy as you, bro.
Oh, you do this time?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I literally ordered all the ones that looked the same as yours.
Except the one that came up goes wrong.
Yeah, the first book comes incorrect.
That's
great.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not really crying. If I lost half the pages, and I'm okay with that outcome on the first
You didn't care about Out of the Silent
No, because I was being kind, I rated it higher than I should have. So.
Jeez. Okay. Anyways.
All for you, Chris. All for you.
Oh, boy.
What
did you just do?
My door.
Oh, because I like you're doing like calisthenics in the background of the podcast, and I was like, what the heck is going on here? Okay.
Otherwise, you'd hear my dog prancing around the upstairs. So.
Because you're doing calisthenics? No, I'm just kidding. So, this book, Perelandra, before we get into it itself, it is the second book in the Space Trilogy by C.S. Lewis. It's not nearly as much talked about as the Chronicles of Narnia, which are definitely his most famous series of books that he produced in his lifetime. I don't know if there's any posthumous works. I could be right or wrong about that. I really don't know. Do you guys know? Does he have any posthumous works?
That's a good question. So. I don't think so.
Okay, so either way, it's like one of the series he's talked about far less than Chronicles of Narnia.
He raised all the children in his life not to abuse his works after he gone.
Yeah, I mean, Doug Gresham really did not do much of that, but he only had stepkids. I don't think he had any of his own children.
Fine, he raised all of them to not screw with his universe once he was.
Yeah, Doug Gresham really left it alone. I think Doug Gresham became an author at some point. I don't know how much writing he did, but I know he wrote a book about C.S. Lewis that I have considered reading.
And it's also strange because when it comes to the movie rights and everything, TV rights, no one's ever actually owned all of them until, at least for Narnia, until Netflix just got all the rights.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyways, this is book 2 in the Space Trilogy, and we're going to get into it. And just like we normally do, we're going to start with a summary of the book. And I think this one will actually have a relatively short summary.
Yeah, I mean, this one's only 190 pages.
Yeah, it's very short.
Well, I mean, it's longer than Out of the Silent Planet.
But he packs an emotional punch, in this one.
Reads much, much faster than Out of the Silent Planet. Where that one...
Yeah.
That one reads like it's 3 times as long.
Andrew wishes the book was also silent.
Yeah.
I do like how in the very beginning of this book, it throws Andrew a bone and it says, "You don't have to read Out of the Silent Planet to read this book."
Yeah, Chris.
Well, I want to read it. It says, here's the preface. It says, "This story can be read by itself, but it is also a sequel to Out of the Silent Planet, in which some account was given of Ransom's adventures."
Is it really a sequel? It's not really a sequel.
Or as its inhabitants call it, Melicandra. All the human characters in this book are purely fictitious, and none of them is allegorical, except Ransom, who's J.R. Tolkien. But that's not actually in here. That's just something I know. Okay. And just for the record, there are no...
That's why they had a falling out, because they didn't have Tolkien have sex with this chick. That's Tolkien was so mad.
Tolkien was mad because it's his character. I would have closed.
He's like, I would have consummated the marriage.
Yeah.
Yes. He said, I would have been king.
And then
oh my gosh.
That said a lot about Freud would have had a field day analyzing Tolkien's anger over that not happening. The whole Eve mother thing. I'm just saying.
So anyways, long story short, Ransom does not get kidnapped by strangers for once. This is not a kidnapped by stranger story by C.S. Lewis.
This is a willful kidnapping.
Yes, technically, yes. It's a willful
Yeah.
kidnapping, I guess.
He decided he wanted the candy, so he got in the van.
Yeah, he gets in the van, the spaceship van, sends himself to a
A
planet.
spaceship
without having
coffin,
any-
you mean?
Yeah, spaceship coffin van, and ends
It's
up.
such a weird image. The coffin thing is, I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah.
So the thing that I've always wondered about this book, and we'll get into this in a minute, but is who is talking to Ransom? It must be C.S. Lewis himself.
What do you mean? At what point? Are you talking about early on?
The person that goes to the interview must be C.S. Lewis himself.
Yes.
Because he's the character in the story.
Isn't that established?
It might be. I know he calls him Mr. Lewis, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's C.S. Lewis.
I feel like it has to be, yeah.
It is C.S. Lewis. It is said in Out of a Silent Planet at the end.
That one, but in this one, it doesn't necessarily say that it is the same person.
Yes, it is, because it's him visiting.
And then the second question I have for this book is when he gets transported in the coffin, is he physically there or is he a metaphysical version of himself?
I think he's physically there, Chris. He gets
I assume so, but
sunburnt in the coffin.
I don't. What is that one movie? It was a Disney movie, came out and flopped really hard, where they transport their minds to Mars. I don't think that's like this. I think it is his physical body.
I think it has to be
the alien one you're talking about.
Yeah.
It had a really stupid name.
Yes.
I'm assuming you're talking about Avatar. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
John Carter of Mars.
Yes, John Carter. It had a really dumb name.
Yeah.
Anyways, those are my two biggest questions. I think it's pretty clear it's probably C.S. Lewis himself, and I think it's pretty clear it's probably the physical body, but it doesn't specifically state that. You know what I mean?
I'm confused how it isn't.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm confused how you're confused, actually.
Anyways, let's move on.
There isn't a sentence that says, for Chris, this is an actual body.
Yeah.
That's what he's looking for.
But I mean, he gets sunburned.
This is my body, which will be given up for Venus.
Exactly, Chris.
He comes back with a wound on his foot, and they have a doctor to treat his physical body. I feel like it's pretty obvious.
It's the Matrix. If your brain dies in the Matrix.
Let's move on to the actual story then.
All right.
I was mostly being facetious, but basically you get C.S. Lewis coming up to Ransom. Dr. Ransom says, "Hey, I need your help." And then he says, "I'm going to be transported to Mars. All those temptations on your way here to not come to me, those were the bad Eldials or Eldial spirits that were working for the bent one."
You mean Venus? You said Mars. Venus. He's going to Venus this time.
Okay, Venus, which is also called Perelandra per the book. Long story short, C.S. Lewis eventually agrees to it, realizes that he was tempted by bad Eldials who didn't believe in initially. Now he does. Maybe this is like kind of a Tolkien and C.S. Lewis story that we don't know about, where C.S. Lewis was actually conversing with higher beings or something.
I think this is more a story about how C.S. Lewis got roped into babysitting Tolkien while he did hallucinogens.
Yeah, but he changed it a little bit because although Tolkien goes to Venus, which is, isn't that the goddess of sex?
This is just
he doesn't get to have sex.
Yeah, this is just the second trip. He realized how dangerous the first one was when he went to Mars without someone supervising him. And now he's here with, Lewis. He's like, "Okay, you're going to watch me this time."
All right. Well,
I need someone to help write out this language when I'm done because it was fire. All right. Yeah, that's.
Anyways, I think
little dragons, floating islands.
I think some part of the story
could have been.
All right. Sorry. Okay. So they get to Venus, Perelandra. And who does he encounter but the Eve of Venus / Perelandra?
He meets a dragon first.
Yeah,
dragons first.
It curls up and sleeps in his lap.
And initially, he thinks the dragon might be a sentient being or Hana, like as from Out of the Silent Planet. It was that probably one of the few actual callbacks besides the Oyarsa of Mars showing up. But yes, initially he's like, "Is this thing an actual thinking
naked,
creature?"
Right?
Yeah, he's completely naked.
That's important. I feel like that's an important plot point.
Yeah, it is.
Why is that an important plot? I mean, it is, I guess. Because when Dr.
They're
Weston
in the garden,
shows
Chris.
up,
that's why it's important.
When Weston shows up, he's not naked though.
Exactly.
Anyways, so he talks and converses with the Eve of the world, who you find out the name of at the end, but she's up until the end, she's the Green Lady, and she doesn't have a name. She's just the queen. And he's talking to her, and every time he like talks to her, he's like, "Oh crap! I just made her think this way, and that's wrong. And I made her think this way, and that's wrong.
I mean, she's
and I'm wrong for
innocent
making
like
her
a
think this way, and
child,
that's wrong."
Chris.
Right.
She's innocent like a child, and he's talking as if she's an adult who has all the same experiences as him in a sense. And every time he says something that you would say is adult and not the innocence of a child, like a childlike perspective, he's realizing he's a corrupting influence.
Yes.
If he so chooses to be.
Yep.
That's basically the moral of this entire book.
And then up comes our favorite Dr. Weston from Out of the Silent Planet, who is a terrible person and killed the otter. And they get into a little debate about science versus kind of spiritual philosophy and religion.
I mean, it's a little bit demonic.
It is.
I'm saying like it's more demonic than science. Honestly,
well, he starts out that way. He tries to put Ransom in a logical fallacy where he'll agree with demonic philosophy.
He puts the scientific skin on demonic.
Yeah. And he spins it in a way that he thinks he can confuse Ransom to agree with him. And so once they get done with that,
his favorite beaver,
Otter.
I know, I'm
the long one.
Anyways, long story short, at the end of this argument, Weston appears to be taken over by the demonic, and then he eats does he eat the bottle now or after they talk to the queen the first time? No, he eats the bottle now. After they get into the fight, he literally bites through a glass bottle, and Dr. Ransom thinks he's going to die.
He's trying to give him water, and he bites
through the bottle,
neck off the bottle. Yeah.
And then Dr. Ransom is like, "Oh, this guy's dead," and he lays there, goes to sleep. And the next day, the man's gone, like he's not there. He's like, "Well, that's weird." And eventually, he meets up with the Green Lady and discovers that Dr. Weston is talking to the Green Lady.
That's why you gotta be really sure. Stab him a couple times.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, in fairness, Ransom was trying to save him at that point. Still,
yeah, he was still trying to save him.
Yeah,
there might have been some redeemable piece. There might have been some redeemable piece of him.
I still don't understand that myself. But you know how Weston is. Like, I would have just killed him. The second he passed out with the gun there, I would have just
Well, he threw the gun before that. The gun
he was eating weird fruits and seeing weird creatures. He's naked. He's just not in a good spot.
He's not, and he's not American. So
the only gun he had on him couldn't do much damage.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's why Weston was so upset with him.
Because he peed in his Cheerios. Anyways, going forward from there, though, that's when you find out that the Green Lady, the Queen, and Weston are having a conversation, and Weston is doing the most simple but obvious strategy of converting somebody to his way of thinking, the demonic way of thinking, by slowly chipping away at what she believes and the motives of Maleldiel, who is the all-powerful being, or the holy god, whatever you want to call him in the series. That's the name they've given him. And he is given one command to the Green Lady, who Weston is slowly trying to whittle away at till she'll agree with him and go do the one thing he told her not to do, which is to live on the flatland. Everywhere on Perelandra is kind of floating or wavy or moving, except for one area called the flatland, which is where obviously Dr. Ransom and Weston would be familiar with on Earth, where everything is flat, or rather unmoving.
Yep.
And so that is the one command given them. Now, the only thing they can't do is sleep on the flatland. They were able to go there. They just couldn't spend the night there. So, like, it's a very simple command, but it's also something that
eat the fruit.
Doesn't seem very logical. It's not like a logical command. It's more of an obedience command, right?
I mean, it's explained in the book. I don't know if we want to discuss it later, but
no, go ahead. I feel like we're
there. I think we just need to get through that. Yeah, it's
an
obedience command.
Well, no, it's not about obedience. It's not necessarily about obedience. The way it's described in the book. It's about love. It's a thing where
obedient love is, I guess,
I guess it's one of those things where it's about a lot of things there where you have to put love into it, because it's not just, oh, obedience just for the sake of obedience. It's
Right.
obedience because you
You love
understand
somebody.
that you love God, technically. That's who it is in this. And there's a trust factor there. And it's the only command out of all the commands that the logic isn't there. Like, you can't say, I see this as good, thus I also will follow this order because I myself would give this, like, this directive, right?
Mhm.
It's I don't see the logic behind it, but I have trust and love in the God deity that this is something I should do.
Yeah, he has my best interest in heart. So
Exactly. So it
It's
is
that
about
one command
obedience, but
testing the love of your free will.
yes, because you're not supposed to see the logic in that command, right? So that's why it's the challenge.
Good old Red in here. 10 out of 10, no cap, best book. We'll see. All right, we'll go through this.
But yeah, that's the point of that command, and it's explained through within this book if you piece it together, basically.
And you could apply that to, you know, parents with rules for children, that a child may not actually see the logic in the command and or request or rule.
yeah, well, they probably won't.
But they need to follow it because they love you and they're obedient to you.
It's a metaphorical rule for the thing that you don't have enough life experience to appreciate yet.
Yeah.
Like, they're not ready for that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so, go ahead.
I was just saying, and that's why you need to have, like, out of love for the one, like, someone that you know has love for you type of thing, take their guidance seriously. Type of deal.
And so following that, Weston continues to chip away at her defenses on this one simple command. First, he starts out by asking her questions about why she can't do it. Then he starts chipping away at why she wants to talk to the king first before making a decision like that. Then he starts saying that she needs to rebel against both the king and Melville.
The king is missing.
Yes. So we don't know where the king is.
Yeah, which is, it's supposed to be Adam, but he's like off on another island. Eve doesn't know where he went. So
the first time I read this story, I actually thought that maybe Ransom was going to be the king. But obviously the second time I read it, I knew for a fact he wasn't.
Yeah.
But anyways, going forward, so Weston is trying to chip away at her defenses by asking questions, posing stories. And anytime a story starts to tip in a way where she's asking too many questions, he changes to a new story to continuously chip away at her defenses by positing all these stories as, like, the good of the woman is to rebel and not be a slave to obedience. And so he just keeps telling stories like that. And then eventually, after that first day of conversations, they all go to bed. Well, of course, Weston is possessed by the demonic. So does he sleep? No, the devil never sleeps, right? Isn't that the whole idea?
Yeah. He is possessed by the fallen deity of Earth, right? Or am I misremembering this?
Ransom never does figure that out, but he says that he's clearly possessed by either him or somebody who is the subject of him. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because, I mean, you have to see a bunch of them in the next book, so I'm getting a little confused.
Yeah. So
yeah.
The first night, though, where Ransom is like, okay, I'm going to go to sleep, Weston does what any child would do who wanted to annoy their parents. He goes, Ransom. What, Weston? Nothing.
Oh my gosh.
Continue to do like that child pestilence maneuver that children sometimes have, where they just don't know what they want to do and they do that.
So he drowned him in the water.
Yeah.
End of the story.
So then, like, over the time, this chipping away at Ransom, chipping away at the queen, and eventually, Ransom gets into this point where it can't go on. He literally says it can't go on. And that's when he has an experience where he's talking to Melville, the grand deity, the top person, or whatever you want to call it, the highest form of power in the universe.
The King of Kings.
The King of Kings, yes. And that's when he says, I was once the ransom, alluding to being part of the Trinity, Jesus Christ, whatever you want to call it. That's when he says that you must do essentially what you must do. And he was like, realizes, okay, I got to kill this demonic presence to save the queen. And so Melaldo says, I have put him to sleep, like, because that's the only way he's going to sleep is if Melaldo intervenes, puts him to sleep. And he puts the queen to sleep so that when he goes to attack Weston, the queen is not awake to witness it, right? Because she does not need to see that.
Yeah.
And so then Ransom and Weston get into a tussle, fight. They're both, licking their wounds, and then Weston kind of escapes. And throughout this whole, I think one thing we need to make clear, like, throughout this whole part, he's calling him the unman because clearly there are traits of him that are not of humanity's sake, and the body is decaying. And there's no trace of Weston left in most of the interactions. But then when he runs away and escapes and goes off into the water and Dr. Ransom follows him, well, the demon, of course, allows Weston to the surface, or something that appears like Weston to the surface, to pull or tug at the humanity of Dr. Ransom. And it works for a minute because he's trying to save him. But then, of course, anytime Weston comes to the surface, it twists back to the demonic, and Ransom ends up killing him. Eventually, I think on the shore, right? Or in that cave. It was in the cave. Yeah, he killed him in the cave.
Yeah.
He basically sat there and just strangled him because it wasn't worth continuously trying. And then after that, he laid there for God knows how long, and eventually got up, got the courage to move, and they move up through the cave, up, and eventually encounters what can only be described as like an eternal fire underneath the earth. And Weston shows up with some creature that he thinks is going to kill him, but it doesn't.
You can't kill him.
So then Ransom throws Weston into the fire. I believe that's how it goes down, right? He's like,
yes,
I'm done with you. Burn this body. And then, of course, the unman can no longer torment him at that point because there's no body left to torment with. And after that, he gets up to the surface. All is well. The Oyarsa from Malacandra and the Oyarsa from Perelandra are there to greet him. He sees they offer him multiple versions of themselves to look at by distance, I guess is the way they described it. But it's like in a case where the human mind can't comprehend what these spirits actually look like, which I thought was a really cool aspect. And eventually they kind of look like archangels. That's the best way I can describe it, like a Saint Michael the Archangel type of person. And he's like, I'm comfortable looking at that. Don't come back with the weird floating eyes. And I don't need these biblically accurate angels.
The multiple forms, like if you're epileptic, you might go into shock.
And then, of course, the king and the queen show up, and they're a full majesty. The queen shows that she was never tempted, or she was never tempted to the point where she did it to sleep on the flatland. The king comes back. They come together, and they both talk about their journeys. In the end, Ransom is sent back to Earth after he's healed up, and basically he has saved Perelandra from the fate of Earth. Which is actually something that we didn't really talk about, was that the bent one, the devil, I guess you want to call him that, was an Oyarsa of Earth, which are essentially the lead angels of each of these planets.
Or like a lesser god.
Lesser god, whatever you want to call it, however you want to factor that in. And at the end of the day, the way that this all works out is that he was bent. He was the bad one. He's the fallen one. And because he fell as the leader of the planet Earth, all of Earth has fallen into a bent way. And that's why humans are not necessarily inherently good. Does that make sense? So that's the background of all of this. And
Earth but C.S. Lewis thought it did.
So with that being said, is there anything you want to add to the story that I missed?
I mean, I am curious on some of your thoughts on a couple things. So what did you think the significance of the dragon was going to be? I thought that was going to be it was a clear allusion to the snake in the garden. So I thought it was going to have a bigger part and like do something else. Why do you think that was included? Or do you think there was any point in having it included?
I think it was just to distinguish the planet from Malacandra, like that the beasts of the planet were obedient to the masters of the planet, the queen and the king, and that he needed to be able to distinguish that the dragons were not speaking, they were not sentient like the creatures of the previous planet, Malacandra. And that was an important point because he was worried, and the beasts didn't end up fighting him or trying to eat him, right? So it's not like the world has not already fallen and the animals are not trying to eat their masters. I think that was kind of the point, so that that the world is just beginning rather than.
Well, I mean, this is a clear allegory to Genesis. So why do you think he used the dragon, though? Because I mean, that is the word that's used in Genesis in Hebrew. So like, why include a dragon that didn't tempt? I guess.
I think it's to show the fact that history doesn't necessarily repeat, but it rhymes. That this is a new occurrence. It's not it's not going to be the same. So he's already foreshadowing that it's not going to be a straightforward, how do I stop the temptation?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. That's how I would describe it.
I would also say that so he had a better form to come in at, which was a human, something that could relate to the queen and the king. Whereas on Earth, he didn't have the resources to be able to possess a human, since it was only Adam and Eve who had free will but were not original sin. And so maybe the idea was that he lands on this planet and he has the ability to bring somebody who's in the human form from another planet there instead of using an animal. It's a better way to relate, maybe. I don't know. That was my thought process the first time.
I mean, it worked the first time. I feel like
I understand why. I believe that's definitely the case on why he used a human form. But as specifically why Lewis wrote it with the dragon in the very beginning, I think is to definitively show how it's going to be different.
I definitely think you get a very deep view into C.S. Lewis's view of religion in this book.
Oh, for sure.
Very, very deep view into it. Like, if you wondered what C.S. Lewis viewed as like the heavens and the earth and all the other pieces in between, I think you get a very vivid image from reading this book.
Yeah. What I really appreciate is that, when you read Genesis, there's no timeline given as far as like the temptation. So you don't know how long that takes. And this actually made me stop and think, wait a minute. What if it did take like days or like hundreds or thousands of years? Because like really, you have no idea.
It was endless, right?
Yeah.
It could have been forever.
Yeah.
Every time she walked away from Adam.
Yeah. The real question is, why didn't they be fruitful and multiply before the snake? No, I'm just kidding.
That's a great question. We can get into that
later. All right.
In fairness, time is kind of like non-existent for them when they live forever.
True.
I think that's a wild time to be alive, because literally our entire concept of time is based off of how long we've lived, right?
Right.
So as you get older, the years go by faster because relativity.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
So what was your favorite part of the book?
I would say the overall temptation, just for what I said. Like it was fascinating and heart-wrenching seeing it happen in real time.
It really is, isn't it? Like when you have to watch it, it's like a train wreck. You can't stop watching it. But I mean, I was glad to see. It's almost like a redemption story of Genesis, as if Genesis had happened differently.
I think my favorite thing in this story is how Lewis uses the Green Lady, Venus Eve, to really scratch at an issue that bothers him, and that's the lack of just gratitude, appreciating what you have, your current circumstances, so to speak, because throughout this dialogue, especially before the unmanned shows up, right, Weston over there to tempt, she's constantly talking to Ransom about reasons why you shouldn't hold on to like past goods or look forward to something that you didn't get instead. So there's a lot of that dialogue. There's multiple times in there, like, don't wish for things you can't have, especially when you know you can't have it. So I think that is a very rich narrative in the story.
I definitely think that this book is what spawns him to write Screwtape Letters.
Yes.
I definitely feel like that.
Especially the dialogue before the unmanned shows up. It's
even after though too.
No, but like there's something about that dialogue that is very much the root of a lot of the letters.
Okay.
Of like how you tempt somebody, because the actual temptation part has a lot of argument back and forth. It's not the same level of laying out like Ransom realizing what he is bringing up into her mind to begin with. That's more innocent and just raw to see, versus when the unman is trying to like show new things like vanity, image of self, that type of stuff.
See,
more primal.
I guess, Will, what was you said, I think you said it, but you didn't elaborate. What was your favorite part?
The overall temptation, but also I was including like just ransom interacting, just seeing Eve. Well, obviously it's not Eve, but it's supposed to be a symbol of Eve. Just starting to wake up to the evils of humanity, and slowly, again, just seeing the fall in real time. That whole interaction was what was interesting to me, and it just read so much faster than the first book, simply because I wanted to see how she would get herself out of that if she could.
Because it's addicting to read. Like when you read this book, it's like addicting to keep going.
Yes.
You're like, I want to see how this plays out.
At times.
I mean, there are parts that slow down.
It's C.S. Lewis. There's always weird stuff in there.
Okay, I'll have my complaint. I'll launch a complaint. After he decides he's going to kill the unman, that book drags so hard.
I think it's just to point out the struggle with trying to kill something that's unkillable.
I don't know if that's the case, because even after that, when they get to the Oyarsas, or however you pronounce it, that drags too.
Well, that part drags a little bit, yeah.
I'm just saying, like, the moment he leaves the Green Lady, the story drags for the last, 20 pages? It felt like an extra 100, man.
I don't know. I read that part a little faster. I don't like delve deep into it, I guess, on that part, only because I know how it ends, and I appreciate what the story was getting to prior to. Thanks to yeah, I forgot you did think that was good, didn't you?
What?
That The Last of Us TV show had good writing?
No, I didn't say it had good writing. I never said it had good writing.
Maybe you said the first episode was good. I don't remember. You said something about it was good. I do remember that.
I said it wasn't the worst. For a TV adaptation, it was not that bad. Okay.
Okay, so my favorite aspect of this story is probably related to when he's learning about the planet and the obedience it shows, and he learns the lesson from the Green Lady that, like, clearly, when in the Bible it says, like, all of you should come to me as children, the lady's there and he's not, and he's trying to explain things to her, and in the explanations he's leading her astray. And it's really interesting to see how somebody with good intentions can still lead people astray, whether it's on purpose or not. And my second favorite part is the slow decay of the body and the slow, like, leaching of the demonic into the body of Weston, and how he uses that humanity of Weston to try to keep ransom on his toes, especially even after everything that's happened and they're on those fish that are about to drown them.
I would add something, Chris, though.
Go ahead.
To your comment about how even with good intentions you can corrupt somebody. I think more importantly is that that's the power of the corruption to begin with, is that no matter what your intentions are, you've been corrupted the second the concept has ever formed in your mind. So even the knowledge of murder, right, has technically corrupted you, because now you think of something as a possibility that if you never ever had experienced it or known about it, would you be afraid of your fellow human?
I mean, it's a good point. Yeah. Right. I mean, if you don't realize that it's possible for a person to kill another person,
would it ever cross a person's mind to kill another person? That right there, it wouldn't be. So everyone would be technically peaceful and friend.
You got a point, Andrew. Like, if you don't have those temptations displayed in front of you or explained to you, it's very difficult for you to form that on your own.
Especially, like, that's the beauty of the Garden of Eden, right? It's plenty, all of that, so you have no reason to be warlike. You're not fighting over starvation or anything. So the whole Cain and Abel thing is that Cain's mark literally made it where everyone now knew that murder was possible.
Yeah. Good point. And if you never read that story in the Bible, you might not know it's possible. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what he's getting at when he's going to kill the unman, right? And
And
the deity puts them all to sleep, right? So no one there knows.
Yep.
So it happens in like a vacuum, and it doesn't corrupt the Earth, Venus.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there was also that scene that I want to highlight where the unman Weston convinces the queen to wear the feathers.
Yes.
And shows her vanity. And how Ransom notices this has already corrupted her in a way that makes her less attractive, less beautiful than she was before, because now she recognizes almost like the recognition of the nakedness.
She puts some clothes on.
Well,
the nakedness was better.
She recognizes self.
There's something of the innocence that has left her when she does that, I guess is what his point is. It's not because she's going from naked to clothed, but
no, it's the self scene. It's seeing
and then he shows her the mirror.
The problem is once the person can see themselves, there's the vanity, but you
can't have vanity if you can't see yourself. There's no way you can have vanity.
Yeah, but it's also selfishness, because that's really the root of vanity.
So yeah, I thought that was a really great, because he's like, oh great, he's not tempting her, and then he's like, oh wait a second, what is this doing to her?
Yeah, I mean, he also killed like how many birds to make that?
Yeah, he killed a ton of animals. Dr. Weston, for whatever reason, the unman decided to just start killing animals left and right.
Frogs and birds.
He's having fun, and then Ransom's like, I'm gonna put it out of its misery, and he's like, I made it worse.
Yeah, because there's not apparently.
Oh man, but yeah, that was one of the most interesting aspects of it. And like you said, Will, it's so interesting watching real time the slow temptation happen, because you said before, nobody knows how long the Genesis story went on. Maybe the snake sat in the tree every day as Eve passed and said, you want to buy an apple?
Oh my gosh.
You want to eat an apple?
It tastes
chocolate.
Then Eve says, apples don't grow in this region of the world. You should know this.
There was a lot of good stuff in this book, honestly. In the beginning, there was a whole narrative about the divide between natural and supernatural. Just like that, there's a comfort in believing something is that, and then when you feel like that's being blurred, it's very unnerving.
Oh, it absolutely is uncomfortable when those lines start to blur.
There was a narrative about we seek goodness, but do we really want it when presented with it?
Yeah, that was an interesting narrative.
That was a good line, right? Because let's be honest, true goodness it's justice, right?
Yep.
It's not just hugs and sunshine.
Well, some people fear yes, it's supposed to be all good, but what does that mean? There's so many unknowns there that some people are just like, it's not that they fear the justice or the goodness, it's they fear, what does that even mean?
Yeah, well, they realize they're not the judge of what is good.
Yeah.
So because they don't get the judge, what the heck just happened?
The cat jumped down from
that was good.
I thought the wall fell or something. I lost my train of thought, so I don't know what I was saying.
You said the goodness and the judgment. That's where you're at.
You don't know what it means. No one really knows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There was another one where he was talking. This is early in the book, so one of the good narrative lines. He had conditions are always changing. Phases of a conflict shift, and one must be aware of how it has changed the rules.
Yeah. I do want to bring up this point that our one viewer, Kilred, who's commenting, Kilred40, good friend of the channel, at least the CHRILLCAST channel, he's a good friend of Colors of Gaming. He says, I like how at times Ransom is somewhat conflicted because the fall on Earth brought about great things. Yes, it brings Melildiel, the god of this universe.
But that goes to the idea of what is good, though.
Yeah.
So for him, he thinks these are great things, but what could have been? And he actually gets to see a glimpse of that.
But he does take that narrative about how it brought about great things later in the book to...
Doesn't Weston try to use that?
No, but he mentions how that's because God created great things out of a bad. He's still going to create good things. It's just he no longer gets to have that great good that he originally intended.
Yeah. And then he also talks about the reason Ransom is able to come there and do his thing is because Maleldil came to Earth in the form of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It was confusing somewhere in the middle when he's like mixing Maleldil, Jesus Christ, God, all those different words into like one paragraph. And I'm like, I can't keep up with this.
I also took the form of a lion.
Yeah, Aslan. That was later. So in the third book, the J.R. Tolkien references get even stronger because he talks about Numenor, which is even funnier. But of course, Mr. Tolkien never actually added C.S. Lewis to his books. So other than Treebeard, if you want to count that. So
we were talking about the ruining the current good concept by thinking of a different good. Do you guys remember that line much? Because I did write it down. So the exact one was.
Do you have what page it was?
I don't remember the page, but I wrote down the quote because it was good. So you could send your soul after the good you had expected instead of turning it to the good you had got. You could refuse the real good. You could make the real fruit taste insipid by thinking of the other. So that's like the fundamental argument that Lewis is writing about, because even in this time he's talking about how like his natural he has like a natural temperance in this place and isn't indulgent with like all the fruits. He's just like eating until he's satisfied type of thing and feeling like it would be sinful to do more in a sense. So it's like there's a whole narrative there about appreciating what you had.
I also liked the concept of possession in that the lady had no concept. No, the lady had no concept of what owning something meant. Like when he tries to give her the mirror, she says, I can have it. What do you mean? Like, what is this owning something? Because possessions don't belong to people on this planet, at least not yet. There's no
It's
concern.
because the king and queen of the whole planet, everything already belongs to them. So it would make no sense to have something given to them because it was already theirs.
But also because on this planet, there's no threat that things will be taken away from them, which is a concept that I was thinking about this as it was going through. I was like, well, yeah, there's no threat to them that these possessions would be taken away from them. Therefore, why do they need to call it their possession or to guard it or keep it close? Because they can just come back to where it is and use it again. There's no need for them to put it away into some treasure box somewhere for themselves.
It's also a constantly moving planet. They don't have a home, right? So they have no reason for possessions. Ransom talks about that in the book. There was a part too where the Eve realizes that she's like, I thought we went along paths. There are no paths. The going itself is the path.
Oh yeah. That
was a pretty deep one. There's a lot of good ones in this, I'm not gonna lie. That's my favorite part of this book. But there was a lot of really good dialogues with Eve.
This writing I feel like is like if you're looking at C.S. Lewis fiction, this feels different than everything else I've read.
I mean, this feels like the Screwtape Letters in the middle, only in the middle. Well, I
feel like the concept of that book definitely, like we already said this earlier, but I feel like the concept of Screwtape Letters is in this somewhere.
There was I don't know if you guys noticed it, but Ransom noticed that the unmanned Weston's stories about women heroes when he's trying to tempt Eve were all actually being told to slander men.
At least to slander the king.
No, every single one of them was to slander men. Basically, the king. The king, effectively, in her eyes.
Because the king is the only man that she's aware of on the planet, other than the two men that showed up.
Yeah. So it's to turn her into thinking that the king needs her to do this, and that for him instead of like because he's incapable or something. So that was he was trying to destroy her. And
they're all rebellious women too. All the stories are rebellious women. And so he's trying to put the concept to her that she needs to rebel from the king because, of course, any type of obedience is bad.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say if you had to highlight a complaint of the book? I know you've already said that it drags at the end. Did you have any other complaints about the book?
I just had the complaint that it dragged at the end, and then there was a part where it dragged in the middle. Not middle, in the... I guess at the end of the first third of the book, it dragged. But that's just...
Weston shows up, or...
I guess when he's trying to get to the planet. When it kind of... That whole sequence kind of drags a little bit, but it's not bad there. The ending, I thought, was a bit...
There's no rushed ending here, though, that's for sure.
No, this ending was like the exact opposite. He wanted to drag it out. I feel like he handed that book off to Tolkien to write the ending. That's
What about you, Will? Do you have any complaints about this book?
What's funny is I'm probably going to say basically the opposite. I really wish that he had taken longer in each scene to let it breathe, a little bit more like Tolkien. I know some people think Tolkien describes too much, but I enjoy that.
I would have been good with that, Will, if he did it during the good scenes.
Okay, yeah, okay. So we agree then.
Yes. If he had done more in the good scenes, because I swear there were a couple pages where I was like, I'm gonna write a note down. Shit, next paragraph, I'm gonna write a note down. Like, it was just banger after banger of quotable content. And the ending was just like, what's the point of the story at the moment? So the whole killing of Weston was just a slog because he didn't need it.
It was a long journey to kill Weston.
Yeah.
That I would say could have been a little shorter. That's probably my only complaint, is that the fight between Weston, this wasn't it wasn't Mustafar in Star Wars Episode 3. This isn't some epic lightsaber duel. It's two old professors
dudes slapping each other,
just swapping blows until one of them passes out. Like, that is not epic writing of a 40-page story.
It would make for a hilarious TV episode. I'm not gonna lie, that would actually be hella funny, and I might be able to handle that ending in video content.
Well, the video content would take a lot less time.
Yeah, but it would also just be funny. It wasn't funny how it's written. It's just tedious.
So I guess you said the first book was would be an unwatchable movie because it would be the Uncanny Valley. But I think this book would be unfilmable because of the nudity.
Of course.
I just can't.
No, it would work on HBO.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but this would be a straight to DVD HBO movie. I don't. I was like, I remember, I forgot that he was naked the whole movie. I forgot, or the book, I mean. And so I was like, well, I guess that's probably why this series can't be made into a movie trilogy, because...
Yeah, but just imagine him slapping the other guy while he's naked. That's so funny.
Or like the scene where the guy literally eats the top off the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we lost Andrew for a second there.
My cat decided to be an asshole.
Oh, did it mess with your camera again?
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into our ratings now. Will, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm going to rank this one pretty high. I really enjoyed this book. This is one of my more favorite C.S. Lewis books. I'd still rank Screwed Tape Levels higher just because that's just uncanny what he was predicting and talking about. But I would probably put this at a 4. I really enjoyed it. There's a couple things I wish he had expanded on. It's the same complaint I have with his Narnia books. I wish he would actually take more time and flesh out scenes and make a bigger book. I feel like he always had some kind of page count that he was hitting. So like every book can't be more than like 200 pages.
Well, book 3, he does not have a page count problem.
Yeah, the thing is, that one's the one that feels like the most like an actual story. So this one feels like he took one letter from the Screw Tape Letters and then made like a sort of like a campfire story around it. The next book is an adventure story. It's an actual book. But yeah, I still really enjoyed it. I'd still give this a 4.
He does have that page count issue. I'm not gonna lie. Like he really wants a specific page count. That's the only way to describe it.
So Andrew, where do you rate this book?
Did you give it a 4, Will?
Will did a 4, yeah.
I know Chris is going to give it a 5.
That's a fact.
I can give it a 4. I can give it a 4 just because there's parts that are so tediously written. That ending is terrible. Yeah.
I don't hate the ending. I think it's actually really interesting how he resolves everything.
That's the problem, is I actually wanted that book over. I was like, oh, it's the ending. He's going to do a Chronicles of Narnia fast slope to the end here, and I feel good about that. And then
you're like, climax has been hit.
All right, and then I was like, oh, shucks. I'm still here reading. So, yeah, no, it's a 4, but it's a very good book overall.
We got a comment in our live chat on Rumble. It says they must not be in Canada. I'm very confused with that. Maybe it's related to the nudity. I'm not sure.
What?
I don't know.
Oh, I mean, like in Britain, I know like nudity is no big deal at all. So maybe that's what he means.
I'm gonna just say,
if you have a nude beach, you can have that on telly. So, but no.
Anyways,
good U.S. of A.
Yeah, we're definitely U.S. of A. citizens. Okay. Did you get to your finish, or you still got something going on here?
Well, I was going to say one more thing that I forgot to mention earlier. There was a whole Eve's, like one of her final points in the ending slog of things was she had a point about how to live on fixed land would have been to reject God's wave, to say not thus but thus. Gotcha. And that was her summary of why they have to follow that rule, type of thing.
So I'm giving this book a 5. This is my favorite fictional story written by C.S. Lewis. It feels like when you're reading it, it feels like this is a very long story, but when you think about what actually happens in it, it's not very long, but it's very, very deep. It's probably one of the deepest spiritual fictions he wrote. I can't think of anything that goes deeper than this one in his spiritual fiction, other than maybe Screwtape Letters.
I don't know. Chris's rendition of the "rar." That was.
I forgot you did that.
You never clipped it either, so you could have clipped that a long time ago.
That was so funny.
The "rar" in the BBC, the British Broadcast Channel version of the Chronicles of Narnia miniseries, they've got Aslan played by this old English actor, and for some reason, whenever the lion comes on to breathe on people and do his "rar" thing, he goes "rar," and it's like, what the heck? Why does he do that?
Chris loves to bring up the BBC and roaring all the time, so
Jesus. Okay. Long story short, though, I'm giving this one a 5. The deep spiritual journey that is Perelandra is well worth reading for anybody. And you don't have to read Out of the Silent Planet. You don't have to read the third book. You can read just this book out of the 3. It's 190 pages, and it's well worth your time. And it gives you a very deep dive into what C.S. Lewis believes.
I'll say this, though. I think
you could read this one in Screwtape Letters and get like almost all of C.S. Lewis philosophy out.
Probably, but I have to say this. I do think that Lewis is too focused on a page count, but not just the page count, making every book stand alone. And I think that hurts him. Like, you can choose one or the other. You can choose one or the other, and it will benefit your book. But when you choose both like that, that's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. No, I mean...
You're like, I love this book. It's pretty bad when you choose.
No, because he shortchanges us on what's a really good book. That's my complaint. That's not going to impact my rating of his book. Okay. It's just his stories would have been so much better. They're already
expanded in some places and contracted in others.
Yeah, they're already great. But like, okay, for our whole thing going through Chronicles of Narnia, for example, if those had been a little bit more connected, I think that would have done wonders for it. The problem is he never did the same world building as Tolkien, simply because he never had a grand plan of, I'm going to write this story. then I'm going to write this one, and I have to connect them with a concisive, continuous lore. And because he didn't do that, he adds random shit repeatedly in each story that kind of it doesn't hurt the other stories. It's just like, didn't know that was a thing until now. So
the Space Trilogy is my favorite C.S. Lewis fictional series, although there's really only 2 that I know of. But it is very disjointed. There's clearly, it almost feels like he wrote 3 stories in the space epic genre and then decided they were connected at the end with little tidbits from one to the next.
All of his books are like that, Chris. All of them are.
Now, I will say, though, I think the way he connects them in the 3rd book and finishes the trilogy is I think you'll forgive him for the disjointedness.
I already forgive him because he's a great author. I'm just saying that's a thing that exists. And if he wasn't such a great author, people would pan the shit out of his books. That's all I'm saying. Like, for a less talented author, that would be an Achilles heel that destroys you. No one would read your shit. But he's so talented that it's almost a shame that he did it that way.
All right. Well, you look like you have something to say, and you keep unmuting and muting. So
no, I disagree. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying not to have my dog chewing a bone.
So what is our next book, Andrew? After this one?
Oh, it is. I actually have the book right here. The next book is. Damn it. It's called "Thank God for Bitcoin: The Creation, Corruption, and Redemption of Money."
Red. If this was written by a worse writer, it'd be bad.
It's less talented. You know what? Kilred,
you're saying if a less talented writer attempted what C.S. Lewis does, there would be no respect.
Yeah, what I'm saying is if it wasn't for how talented Lewis is, the style would never be able to be pulled off. That's all. You're
saying C.S. Lewis pulled off a style no one else can.
Yeah. This writing style is very unique to C.S. Lewis as far as success goes.
Very few authors have found success while putting together a series that's as disjointed as his are.
Exactly. I really can't think of another. If you can think of another author as disjointed as C.S. Lewis is with his trilogies and chronicles, then I'll be impressed if it's actually a bestseller. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Is there anything else we need to say about this one, Will?
Nope.
Like I said before, this is tied for Screwtape Letters for my favorite fiction by C.S. Lewis, and this is the reason why I love the Space Trilogy so much. The 3rd book is good too in its own right.
Yeah, I think the 3rd book is my favorite of this series, simply because it's the most like book of a book. You know, you'll understand when you read it, Andrew, like what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it ain't no.
I started reading it already, but I'm not that far in.
The 3rd book or the
Dune? The 3rd book.
Oh, 3rd book. Okay.
Yeah.
So the next books in our podcast series will be "Thank God for Bitcoin," the Space Trilogy 3rd book is That Hideous Strength, and then Dune.
Were we doing Dune right after, or were we going to do the?
We'll see how far we get reading Dune before we do Dune. But after re-looking at the 3rd book in the Space Trilogy, it's not as long as I remembered. It's only 300 some odd pages.
Yeah.
So it's not the 500 the paperback.
It's like positively gigantic for C.S. Lewis, though.
It is really
the longest book he's ever written.
His longest book ever written.
I'd be curious if that's true or not. I wonder. Let's Google
it.
That.
It really has to be, because his next closest one that I can think of was The Last Battle.
Yep.
And that was 260 pages.
Yeah, that did feel like a long book, though.
I'll be honest, though. The Out of a Silent Planet, I'm pretty sure it was longer. It was really densely written.
Mm-hmm.
Is it this one? The Dark Tower?
He did not read The Dark Tower, unless he has a book with the same title as Stephen King.
C.S. Lewis has a book called The Dark Tower.
Well, I'm fascinated.
And how many pages is it? Did he break 400 finally?
I'm not. I haven't found. It looks like it's a bunch of short stories, so it might not be.
That doesn't count.
Might not count.
I bet they're all disjointed too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, apparently, The Dark Tower is mentioned in the Space Trilogy as a book people are reading. So it must have been written before he wrote the other one. So it's interesting. And it says it was going to be an unfinished sequel to Out of the Silent Planet. Yeah, incomplete manuscript written by C.S. Lewis that was an unfinished sequel to Out of Silent Planet. The allegations have been raised out of its authenticity, and then Perelandra became the second book and concluded by the hideous strength. So that's interesting. I almost want to read it now and see what the heck they mean by.
It's probably his version of the Silmarillion.
Except for the Space Trilogy, so it's very disjointed.
Yeah,
more so.
Even more.
Anyways,
no, the Dark Tower is, given the subject matter of Ransom being naked, the Dark Tower takes on a different meaning.
All right, well, I'm gonna definitely take this question, what's the longest C.S. Lewis book, and I'm gonna pin a comment to this video when I figure out what it is, because I can't seem to figure it out.
Red, I also love Dune. I'm so pumped to finally talk about this book. I've been trying to convince these guys to move it up in the timeline.
Well, it's just because the book is long as shit.
Hey, I gave you an olive branch, so we could split it between. There's multiple books inside that book, so we can split it.
Nope, we're just doing it as one big book.
I'm willing to do that, but
no, because we're gonna do Dune Messiah following that, and it's a much shorter book, and I'll be able to get that much faster.
Yeah. Dune Messiah is totally different from the first book, though, just to give you a heads up on that.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. From reading up on it, it sounds like the second book in that trilogy takes the Messiah from the first book down a totally different journey than the first book.
Yeah, people were really pissed about it, but when you actually read it, it's honestly, I really enjoy how it goes.
It's a serial. They actually serialize it, and the guy that did the serial for Dune, the original, didn't want to even do the serial for Dune Messiah because he hated it.
Well, because they wanted him to be this big badass, like conquering planets and shit. And it's I don't know, it's just not what you expect, and I enjoyed that aspect.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's a preview for what's coming up next. You got Thank God for Bitcoin, followed by The Hideous Strength, followed by Dune, followed by the recap of the Space Trilogy.
And let's be honest, Thank God for Bitcoin is a short book, so
it's like 150 pages.
Yeah, it's
and I'm already
short, easy read.
I got through 25% in like an hour. I'm enjoying the intro at least. So we'll see how I feel about the rest of it. So, anyways, we'll be back with a CHRILLCAST episode soon. What were you gonna say?
Before we go, it's a new year coming up, so if anyone out there is looking for an excuse to read more books, make a New Year's resolution to join our reading club and improve your ability to concentrate again on actual content.
Yes, my reading has fixed my memory lapses that I would have from time to time, where I would just feel like I have ADHD.
Chris remembers he has 5 kids now.
Anyways, reading does really help with memory. If you have any issues with memory, definitely start reading.
And just organizing your thoughts in general. So if you're looking for a worthwhile New Year's resolution,
join our book club. Read more.
Exactly.
I read and play Subway Surfers at the same time, says Red. Well, that's one way to do it, I suppose. But he also said that Dune does not feel long and it's binge worthy.
So I totally agree. I love that book. So
I'm about 50 pages in and I've only had like 20 minutes to read. So I would agree with that.
There's no way you read 50 pages. What the fuck are you talking about?
I'm calling bullshit, Chris.
Only about 20 minutes, give or take a couple hours,
I'm just messing around. Anyways, as always, I'm Chris.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Will.
And we will see you
on the next
CHRILLCAST. Oh crap.
Printed and depressed.
Dang it.
Printed and depressed, Will.